There's a simple and somewhat surprising step that parents can take right now to dissuade their teens from trying drugs and alcohol. In fact, the action cut teens' drug and alcohol use by 40%, according to recent data. And I sat down with renowned addiction specialist TJ Woodward, who explained what you can do as a parent to best protect your kids from dangerous decisions. Let's talk about the ways that parents can keep their kids drug and alcohol free, because as parents, that's what we all want, right? What is the most effective way? What should parents be doing to make sure that their kids aren't heading down that path?
Well, I think the most important thing is to have as many conversations about it as possible. When I look back at my generation, the answer was just don't do it. And I don't think that was really effective. I think a deeper conversation about why your child, why your teen is even considering or looking at using drugs. There's obviously a lot of their peers using, so I think having a conversation about it is obviously the most important thing.
Yeah, and also knowing your kid, right, and knowing how to approach this topic with them, because it's a tough one sometimes, and kids aren't, you know, often willing to really open up about stuff like that.
Yeah, and I find that really it's the parents that are often discomfort or uncomfortable.
Sure.
They have this discomfort about talking with them. So I think part of it is, as parents, we need to learn to be uncomfortable and have these conversations that are difficult, but to really be open and listen to the teen instead of thinking that I have this idea I want to impart on the teen. We know that the teen brain is somewhat rebellious anyway, and kind of that differentiation, which is an important part of their development, is happening. So we want to honor them, we want to hear them, and we want to actually ask the deeper questions.
What should we as parents not do in getting into that topic with our kids?
It's a little nuanced, because we don't want to come on really heavy and say, you shouldn't do this, right? Because as soon as we do that, what are they going to do? They're going to resist, and they're going to keep a secret. And the main thing we don't want to do is have them keeping secrets from us. That's where we get into trouble, because then we don't know what's actually happening with them.
Okay, so what can we actually do as parents to make sure that our kids aren't doing that? I mean, if a kid knows that the parent is at least monitoring their activity and are mindful of the fact that, you know, drugs and alcohol are around, I mean, that might potentially, you know, make a kid shy away from that type of behavior, right?
Yeah, I think ultimately it goes back to creating a safe space to really hear them, even if we don't really want to know the full story. And I think that's often what happens. Parents say they want to know, but they're really afraid to hear what's actually going on, either in their peer group or with their child themselves.
Okay, so how can we prepare our kids to navigate situations when they may be offered drugs or alcohol? I mean, the kid's going to end up at a party at some point, right? I mean, how do we prepare them for heading out into that world?
Yeah, I think the days of where we said, well, it's okay to experiment, I think these days are really different with drugs that are actually killing people. Back in, you know, a different generation, it was like, oh, let your kids experiment and then have a conversation. I think having conversations about the deadly nature of drugs is important, but we really want to go deeper, and that is why I would ask my child, why do you think kids are using drugs? What do you think is really happening? What do you see happening? And what would you do in the scenario where someone offers it to you? We want to get them talking instead of us being the ones who are doing most of the talking.
How do we keep tabs on our kids without smothering them?
This is $1 million question, right? Because I think we talk about helicopter parents now, and I understand why parents want to be that. We have cell phones now, we can track our kids. I think all that is important. Balance is going to be important here. And I think the more we build trust, the more we have authentic relationships, the more then they can actually feel comfortable telling us what's really going on. So it's really a balance. I think, you know, trying to be in the middle way is important with that.
You mentioned our generation and the just say no message that was put forth by the White House. It wasn't very effective. Why wasn't it effective?
Well, I think whenever we are against something, it tends to kind of push back, right? Resistance brings more resistance. So if we go into the story of drugs are bad and you shouldn't do it, which of course on one level is true, we're going to find people who want to secretly use drugs, right? I remember watching drug movies as a kid, and it actually, I wanted to try it, you know, and I ended up in an addiction in my teenage years. I got sober at 20 years old, but my teen years were definitely addicted. And I think the deeper message would have been, what's really going on with me, how to actually be in touch with my feelings, safe place to talk about what's really going on, and I think there's less desire than to use drugs or to escape from what we call reality.
TJ Woodward is offering up advice on a wide range of topics in several bestsellers, including his latest work, Conscious Creation, aiming to help us break the barriers to our biggest dreams.